I personally hired 113 full-time employees while managing a team of 6 people. One of the very first things I was taught in recruiting is that recruiting is the only time where the product can return itself. Structure creates freedom. And when you have a really clean process and you have a structured approach to assessing talent, that's when you notice the spikes.
Hello, this is Julian Castelli. I'm the host of the Growth Elevated Leadership Podcast, where each week I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders from the tech industry. Past guests have included CEOs and CXOs of great companies like Workfront, CHG Healthcare, Pathology Watch, InMoment, Canopy, the San Francisco 49ers, and many more. This episode is brought to you by Growth Elevated. At Growth Elevated, we're a community of tech founders, CEOs, and CXOs who are committed to working together to share best practices and learnings in an effort to help all of us become better leaders. We do that through educational programs like this podcast, as well as our blog, and of course our events. And we just had our 9th annual Ski and Tech Summit in beautiful Park City, Utah. And so if you like skiing and you like tech and learning about tech and AI and things like that, check us out at growthelevated.com and join us for one of our events in 2026. Today, I am excited to welcome Laura Merin to the podcast. Laura is the former head of talent with 14 years of experience scaling global industry-defining startups, including companies like Riskified, Bolt, and Better.com. She recently founded a new business called Rare Talent Ventures, where she's the CEO, and that's a bespoke recruiting, talent advisory, and career coaching firm that helps startups scale by connecting exceptional talent with visionary leaders. And all the companies that are growing are needing to hire talent. And Laura, today I can't wait to have you give us some of your wisdom and help us to do that right, because it's so hard to hire the right talent. Isn't that true?
Yes, and the right talent can make or break a company. No two ways about it.
100%. So how did you get into recruiting in the first place?
By accident. I was recruited to become a recruiter out of college.
You were recruited to become a recruiter?
I was recruited immediately out of college, and I said, absolutely not. What is this? Absolutely not. And then a few years later, a friend tricked me into an interview that I thought I was going to a recruiting firm for them to place me. She had set it up for them to interview me. She was in on the whole thing. They designed this whole thing. And by the end of the day, I was like, okay, yeah, I think I'll do it. And haven't looked back since.
And what were the things that made you, that made them trick you, or you think why'd they want you to become a recruiter? What were the skills that they were trying? Are you a personable person? You can read people well. What are the skills a good recruiter has? I mean, I can talk to a wall. So I think that's a good one. Well, I'm grateful you're talking to me.
Yeah. No, so I can chat with anybody, and recruiting is an opportunity to combine a few of the things I really love, which is helping people, being involved in a business and helping make strategic decisions. And no 2 days are the same. So I get to have that variety, but the outcome is always the same, where I'm helping people and companies advance.
Terrific. So you were part of a recruiting firm, and then you got into the startup world. You worked with some great, well-known technology companies in the Bay Area, and then you came to Utah here where we met. Let's talk about your experience with Bolt. What is Bolt? What kind of company is that?
Bolt's evolved. When I joined Bolt back in 2018, it was on a mission to perfect checkout. So bringing one-click checkout to e-commerce outside of Amazon.
So it's an e-commerce company. So for people
e-commerce payments, yeah, for companies who are processing any company doing business online. And it has evolved into an everything app, which I'm still catching up on what that means. But they have very exciting partnerships, and it continues to grow. But when I was there, we were just focused on checkout for e-commerce.
Okay. And so streamlining the checkout experience for companies?
Yeah. And really helping smaller organizations. When I joined, we were really focused on SMBs and mid-market companies, helping them compete in a world of Amazons. And how do you ensure that
Right. So the people who aren't Amazon, how do you have a really good e-commerce experience and get the close rate, right? Because
exactly.
Multiple steps, every step decreases your execution rate by meaningful percentages, right?
Oh, for sure. And yeah, we did everything we could to eliminate friction, because friction creates abandoned.
That's right. Friction kills close. Yeah.
Time kills all deals.
Okay. So e-commerce.
Yes.
And this company was based in San Francisco and Salt Lake. Is that right?
Yes. So when I joined, our headquarters was in San Francisco. We had an office here in Salt Lake City as well, in Utah, beautiful Utah. And I helped open up our Toronto and New York City offices as well. So we had 4 locations by the time I left.
Got it. And so how large was the business when you started?
I was the 43rd person. So we were Series A and I was number 43.
Okay. Series A company, 40 people. Were you growing fast?
We were growing very quickly. We were certainly trying to go very quickly. We were acquiring money merchants, but we didn't quite have the headcount to execute on our roadmap. And so that's what I was brought in to do, was to streamline our hiring processes, ensure we had a consistent high talent bar, and could find the best people in Utah and California to bring Bolt to the masses.
So as a recruiter, that's the perfect mandate. You got a fast growing company, and they need people to execute, and they need recruiting. So that was great. So just before we go into the story, you started in 2018 with 43 people. You grew fast. I think you told me earlier by 2020 you had how many people?
We were over 200 people. So we grew 5x.
Okay, so you 5x the business in just over 2 years. Is that right?
Yes, and doubled the operation.
Okay, so that's
it was huge.
So that's one of those crazy growth stories. So you went from 2 offices to 4 offices and 5x the amount of people. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So this is a hyper growth story. They needed people, and you were a big part of the solution here. So tell us that story. Like, when you got there, how were they recruiting?
I will say, I want to say this very candidly, is that it was very well intentioned. But recruiting had been structured by operators, not by recruiters. And so what this looked like was a bit of a disparate, stochastic approach with inconsistent processes across the company. There were agencies we were working with. There were RPOs, which are embedded recruiting teams. We were working with a team, I think it was like 13 people in the Philippines doing sourcing, but there wasn't a consistent, cohesive narrative around who are we as an employer? What will people get out of joining Bolt? Why should they join Bolt? Who are we trying to hire? Like, really, like, what makes a great Bolter? And we didn't have the internal infrastructure set up of even every interview should look the same. How are we evaluating people? How are we controlling for unconscious biases? Essentially, I came in, assessed where we were, what was working, what wasn't. And I was very lucky and very fortunate. I had the support of a boss who was like, hey, I did this the best I could. Please help. And so it was, there definitely was it was a process and took a little bit of time, but we got to a point where we had a very fast fine-tuned machine and helped us scale 5x in 2 years.
Yeah, you must have been able to grow 5x in 2 years, hiring hundreds of people.
Yes.
How many people did you hire personally in that journey?
I personally hired 113 full-time employees while managing a team of 6 people. And I had a 99% close rate with a 100% close rate for all technical talent. I'm very proud of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's a typical close rate for a technology company recruiting, you think?
It's going to be low 70s.
Okay. So 99% is pretty awesome.
Yeah. I definitely perfected my approach to candidate experience and closing and over the years.
So what was your secret weapon? How did you close 99% of these candidates? And you work so hard to find them, right?
Yes.
Is that a big deal when you're recruiting? I mean, you don't really hear about that as most people aren't used to being on that side. But is it's finding the right person is what you people think. But is the close rate a big part of that? And is that something that is unusual to have that high of a close rate? If so, what was your secret?
Absolutely. I mean, on my epitaph, I want my epitaph to include it's that big of a deal. And I think that, people think about, okay, we want a certain pedigree, or we think we want these certain skills, but the actual recruitment process is you are refining the idea of what makes a great employee, who's going to make what makes a great candidate, makes a great employee. And it's a very delicate balance because you are, in many ways, you're just an information broker. You're sharing information with candidates. Hey, you should want to work here. You're sharing information with hiring teams. Hey, you should want to hire this person. And it's a very interesting dance because you're essentially dating multiple people and you have to,
Yeah, you're a matchmaker, right?
you're a matchmaker. And the way that I found really, the way that I found to be the most effective was I developed a process that is best described as being a professional creep, where I would get to really know my candidate.
A professional creep?
Yes, a professional creep, where
what does that entail?
It entails being really close to redefining boundaries, and not in a bad way, but like, I ask candidates, hey, can I text you? Not just I'm going to email you. Can I text you? So we get into texting conversations. I've sent candidates playlists. They've asked for pictures of my dog before. And it's building an authentic relationship where they can tell I'm invested in them and they're invested in me. And I'm a proxy for the company. And I am somebody who they learn to trust. And in the ideal relationship is
so you're able to build trust as a company recruiter. That's a big deal. Yeah. I've been called by lots of recruiters, and I can see, there's some that are just very transactional, and then there are others that actually you have to learn to trust, particularly if you're leaving a job to take another job. You really have to believe these people and have some credibility in them.
Oh, Julie, no, you touched upon something that is one of my core maxims, and we can, and maybe this conversation for a second podcast, but what has informed my approach to hiring, and I've shared this with every hiring team of mine, and it definitely shapes the candidate experience, is you're not just hiring a person to solve a problem, which is why, you open a role, you make a hire because there's a problem that can't be solved with your current team. However, fundamentally, what you're doing is you're asking someone to change their entire life to make your equity worth something and to bring your life.
Taking a big risk.
Huge risk. I mean, people are leaving their 401ks, they're leaving their commutes, they understand the politics where they work, they have the dress code, they know their commute, whatever it is, right? There are so many things. They know their vesting schedule, whatever it is.
Into a world of unknown.
A world of unknown. And so by showing up as my authentic, very friendly self, and I'm able to build that trust with my candidates, they know, I mean, this is part of my East Coast charm, my lack of filter, is they know they're going to get the truth from me. And my hiring partners also know that they're going to get the truth from me. And so as a result, by becoming deeply embedded in the lives of my candidates and my hiring partners, it's how I've achieved this 99% close rate. Because if we reach a moment in time where I can tell there's a reservation from the hiring manager of, hey, we really need somebody who knows Python, right? We'll put it on Python. Somebody who knows Python, or somebody who speaks Japanese. And that really, you can't, if it's a must have for the job, then I need to say to the candidate, hey, I'm really sorry. We're pivoting in the role, and having an authentic and honest and awkward at times conversation, and they have my trust. The way that this also shows up and how I build trust with my candidates and how it's gotten to this 99% close rate is if I notice hesitation on their end, I do everything I can to get to the root of it, to understand, okay, why has your communication pattern changed? Are you responding more slowly because you're busy, or because I'm no longer a priority because this role is no longer a priority? And I'm not going to bring somebody all the way to the end of the interview process just to say I did it. I'm only going to move you forward in the process if I really believe that this is a mutual fit. And so I think that having that, the ability to have built that trust with all parties in the hiring process, that they trust me when I say someone should or should not continue the process, everybody wins. And then I guess end up with this epitaph-worthy 99% close rate.
Yeah, so it's like a sales funnel, right? Like you're knowing when to cut people out of the funnel if it's going to be wasting time. And you can really increase your close rate by qualifying, by getting good information, by getting close to the customer's problem. I'm speaking sales, but it's very similar to recruiting, I'm sure.
Oh, 1,000,000%. One of the very first things I was taught in recruiting is that recruiting is it's the only time where the product can return itself. It's the only time. Like, you're not going to buy a license to Microsoft and Microsoft's going to be like, actually, no, we really don't want to work with you anymore. It's the only time that this is going to say, I don't want to be in this process anymore. And so it really is, it's not for the faint of heart, but it's fun.
Yeah. So you sound like it was a very distributed, international, outsourced recruiting dynamic. Now
Yes.
Bolt was growing fast, so you were having commercial success, and so you changed it to an in-house team. You built an in-house team, but what
Yes.
were some of the challenges that you faced, and some of the maybe cultural or thematic changes that you had to deal with to build a successful recruiting arm that could 5x the business in 2 years?
For sure. So there were a couple issues that we had to navigate as a team. The first was moving beyond, we had to understand quantity versus quality. And because the
Okay.
recruiting function had been built, again, I had a wonderful boss, and the operator I worked with, they were incredible. They just were not recruiters. They were like, how do we maximize our output? Because it's a numbers game, because it is a lot like sales. It's a numbers game. We'll just do outbound
Yeah.
as we're building a nascent employer brand, because we were Series A. Encouraging the team to take a step back and say, what do we want to be known for? If we want people to understand how phenomenal our team is, that craftsmanship in every single function is paramount and is a top priority for us. That needs to show up in how we present ourselves to candidates. So instead of booting out thousands of messages per month, which I remember in my second or third interview, they told me the number, and I was like, whoa, this is like, I was like, yeah, we sent out like 5,000 messages last week. And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. Like,
Spam.
this is going to be so much to clean up. And it's like, okay, like, let's look at conversion rates. Let's not just look at top of funnel. Let's look at conversion rates. Let's look at how do we build a strong employer brand. So that was one thing, was really shifting to an abundance mindset of, if we do this the right way, quality is going to trump quantity. Another thing we needed to overcome was confirmation bias, and a lot of these, what I consider almost tropes in startup land, of you need to only hire from certain schools, or you only need to hire out of certain companies. You don't want, it's too much of a risk to your business. These are people who've been able to attend or contribute to these organizations, institutions. They've already been vetted. They're phenomenal. They're the best there is. Let's rely on that infrastructure to save us time and build the best company. But
So they were looking for the brand versus the person.
yes. And I was new to Silicon Valley when I joined Bolt. I'd moved from New York to San Francisco to build the company. And it was wild, because I hadn't seen this before in the Northeast. There are a lot of different schools, a lot of different companies, there are regional schools. Like, there was not this emphasis on you only hire out of two schools. Whereas I got to San Francisco and it was suddenly Stanford and Berkeley or bust. And so really being able to understand why that had become the culture for our entire industry, and working with the founders and working with the leadership team, the hiring managers, to say, let's take a step back and look at what we really need, the kind of person who can really get this done. And then let's find ways to surface that talent from unexpected, schools, unexpected industries, whatever it is, because there are multiple benefits to doing it that way. Number one, not as many people are trying to fish in the same pond. So that's always good, right? So you're not competing as much. The war on talent it's a real thing. And so, okay, so if we're going to try to recruit out of schools or companies that these are up and coming, we're not going to.
Do you have any examples of, like, a non-traditional background where you hired just a star and you were able to prove your point?
Pete Jones will always have a piece of my heart. He was somebody this was one of the most wild. Hiring him he's still a dear friend. Hiring him was one of the highlights of my career. The day that I decided we were going to hire him was one of the most chaotic days of my life. It was wild. So Pete had a more unusual background. Pete had been really early into blockchain, and crypto, which the founders of Bolt Bolt actually had a tie back to crypto in the very first iteration. So there was that tie in. But Pete had been a semi-professional baseball player. He had his own wine label. He had some sales background. He had worked at a payments company a couple years prior, but it was just, I just saw something on his resume and I saw something in him of, he's really entrepreneurial. He has grit that doesn't show up as like, oh, I went to Stanford, or like, oh, I was one of the first 10 employees at Stripe. It was, he knew who he was. He understood his goals and he worked toward them relentlessly, absolutely relentless. And so Pete was, and he had this presence to him that I knew if I was this enraptured, when I'm interviewing 16 people a day, if he's sticking out to me, he's going to stick out to our merchants. He's going to stick out to our customers, and that we need that salesperson. Pete came on site one day, and I had been piloting a new way of interviewing people where I wanted to, there's a Peter Thiel approach. It's in 0 to 1 of you, all these interview questions. You ask somebody, essentially what's an overrated concept, or like what's a belief that is like too many people have, and we'll copy and paste in a different version. I'll say it differently after. We'll cut this part out. But I wanted to have my own take on how do we get a sense of how someone really thinks, and how are they going to be persuasive, especially in a sales role. And it was wild conversation that turned into it, but it was fun. And every time I created an obstacle, he overcame it in a persuasive, wonderful way. And I just was like, wow, if this guy is this, he's not relying on anyone's ideas.
He's overcoming objections. That's good.
Overcoming objections, but he's doing it from first principles. And Julian, I kid you not, I told Pete, I was like, stay in this room. I went into another conference room. Our CEO was meeting with outside counsel. I pulled the CEO out of that interview and I said, you need to meet with him right now because we need to give him an offer today.
Nice.
I'm not letting anyone else hire him. And Pete wound up being one of the very top salespeople. He just continues to be this maverick, heart of gold, killer salesperson. And if we had only stuck to, hey, they need to come out of these companies and these industries, we never would have gotten him. And we're all
I think a lot of first-time founders really don't know how to hire, and so they kind of rely on these benchmarks, which are great benchmarks, right? There's reason people pay a lot of money to go to Stanford or Berkeley, and it's great, but look, let's face it. There's a bell curve in every population, including the population of people from those schools, and it's a very small part of the population. So, being able to expand and actually have the confidence that you can make that right hire and find the right person. I think most CEOs don't have that confidence. I think they have this anxiety. Now, there's a saying that says, fire fast and hire slow. I find that CEOs do the opposite. I think because they lack the confidence that they can hire really well and crush it, they fire really slow and keep people because they don't have the confidence they can upgrade. And then they hire fast, using these kind of shortcuts that you're talking about because they just want to get a person and say, okay, that person's from startup, brand name ABCD, you name it, right? Is that consistent with what you see?
Oh, 1,000,000%. And it, I think, comes down to, do you have an abundance mindset? Do you have conviction in what you're building? Do you have conviction in your own judgment? Don't outsource to other people. Hire
the brands. You're outsourcing to the brands or the archetypes. Yeah. Exactly.
Sorry, that's what I meant by saying outsourcing. Yeah, they're just saying oh, okay, well, so and so has seen success in this, or I'm hearing from a mentor or someone, one of our investors that we should be hiring out of this company. Ultimately, founders, this is your dream. This is your vision that you're bringing to life. The culture comes from you. Only you are building this company. So trust yourself enough to say, I know what we need here, and I'm going to hire that person. And there's an anxiety of, I just need to get somebody in that seat. I need to get this done. I need to show investors. I want
to hire fast because I'm anxious. I can't,
hire fast. Yeah.
And you got to hire slow. And you have to be deliberate. You have to have a process.
So deliberate. Being process driven is very underestimated. I personally have found that structure creates freedom. And when you have a really clean process and you have a structured approach to assessing talent, that's when you notice the spikes. That's when you create the framework to say, this person is truly exceptional.
Yeah, because you have consistency and everyone's using the same benchmarks, right? And you can see the spikes because you're measuring things, right?
Yes. And when you know yourself, you
We
know your
could have a
company
whole
well.
other podcast on
Yes.
that,
I'd be
the
happy to come
specifics
back.
of
Yes.
hiring processes, because
Yes.
I give a lot of my companies scorecards, and they're like, oh, this is amazing. It's so much easier now. I'm like, yes, it is. Let's be data driven, right?
God bless
Well,
a
Laura,
rubric.
let's talk about your new ventures. Now, you had experience
Yes.
at Bolt, you had experience at Riskified, you experience at Better.com. So you've helped a lot of founders and companies create innovation and exciting tech companies. But now you're starting your own. Last year you started Rare Talent Ventures. Tell us a little bit about Rare Talent Ventures and why you started it.
Yeah. So Rare Talent Ventures is, to me, the inevitable outcome of having spent over a decade scaling industry defining companies and being able to perfect and hone my craft in intense, amazing, wild companies, working with some of the smartest, most creative people in the world. But ultimately, what it came down to is for well over a decade, I was building someone else's dream. And granted, I did some of the best work of my life, and I'm so grateful for it. But I wanted to find a way to build my own dream while also doing the work that I love to do and that I felt really confident I could do better than almost anybody else in the world, which I think all founders were a bit delusional. We all think we can do it better than anyone else. So I'll just own that up front. And I, I, I wanted every company to be able to build the right team. And I wanted them to have the right infrastructure. And I realized that there was a world where I could work really hard and continue to scale these outstanding companies, but to do so while building my own dream. And yeah, so that's how it all came together. And it also was an opportunity for me to accomplish a goal and a dream I'd had for over 7 years, which was to move to Park City full time. And so by building Rare Talent Ventures, I created that freedom in my life and that space to finally call Park City home.
Well, welcome to Park City. What kind of companies does Rare Talent serve?
Yeah, so I work with primarily seed stage through Series B companies. I work with founders who are looking for structure. They're either looking for somebody who's going to help them through a talent advisory capacity where I come in and build their infrastructure, create scorecards with them, teach their team how to interview, teach them how to plan their headcount, or for one-off hiring practices and one-off needs where they say, hey,
you'll help them develop this. You'll
yes.
help them develop the hiring talent internally as well as doing, outsourced searches.
Yes. And it's such a small world. One of the ways I was connected to Growth Elevated is Keziah Wallenston with Vannon. I actually helped her years ago, helped her refine some of her in-house recruiting
Nice.
processes. Yes. So it's a small
Okay,
world. And
wonderful.
now, they just had an incredible exit. So, I guess there's some proof there. But no, most importantly, I get to work with founders who know they want to build an incredible team and they're just not sure exactly how to do it. So they come to me either for the advisory work or one-off hiring needs for operators.
Got it. And what differentiates Rare Talent? You're talking earlier about kind of the operating experience versus just hiring another recruiting firm full of maybe career recruiters. How do you differentiate from those bigger names?
What differentiates Rare Talent Ventures from any other recruiting company, any other one-off recruiter or RPO is that I have firsthand experience as an operator. I've been a head of talent. I've been a chief of staff. I've been a head of people. I have built companies from the ground up, and I bring that operating experience and that obsessive dedication to quality that I use to build companies that went public. I'm going to bring that to your organization. And we touched upon how I'm a professional creep before. I still cannot extricate myself from these companies. I understand that I'm not, like, logically, I know I'm not part of this company, but when I'm hiring for you, I think I am. So I'm only going to hire somebody who I think I would want.
So
to
you
work
get
with.
personal with both the clients and the candidates.
Yes.
Because you're a people person and you build connectivity, which is great.
Yes.
And I like the fact that you have the operating experience, so you know what's critical for these roles, and you can really assess it with a good process, etc. So that I think that's a skill set that all startups need, and I think that sounds very attractive.
Yeah.
Laura, thanks for joining us today. Tell me, if people, I always ask, people, if you only have time to listen to one podcast or read one book or one blog, what you recommend that people listening might want to listen and check out?
They should read Let My People Go Surfing by Yvon Chouinard. Yvon Chouinard is the founder of Patagonia, and that is a company that was built as a love story of him seeing a need in the market and also wanting to build a company that matched his ethics. And that is what I am doing here at Rare Talent Ventures, where I'm building a company where I stand behind every single thing I do and every single candidate I place. And every time I've seen another founder say, hey, I read Let My People Go Surfing, I've been like, oh, you know how to build a good culture. So I would say, if you want to build a company that's true to who
I
you
love
are,
that.
yeah,
I want to check that out. I haven't read that yet, but that sounds awesome.
you'll love it.
Well, that's a great one. Laura, where can people find you and where can they find Rare Talent Ventures?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn you can look up Laura Frances Merin or just linkedin.com/in/Laura Frances with an E, so FRANCES. Or you can find me at raretalent.ventures.
Rare Talent that Ventures. Excellent. Well, best of luck with the new startup, and thank you so much for sharing your experience with our community today.
Thank you so much,
Great
Julian. Have a
talking with
wonderful
you.
day. Talking to you too. Bye.
Bye.